buildings in the capital Tbilisi after the government suspended talks with the European bloc. Police have used water cannon, tear gas and rubber bullets against the crowds. The protesters are accusing the government of being influenced by the Kremlin. And Alex Scrivener is Executive Director of the Democratic Security Institute, and he joins us now from Tbilisi in Georgia. Alex Scrivener, welcome. So just in the last week, you wrote a piece talking about the death of democracy in Georgia and the protesters dwindling in number. But after the last 48 hours, does that observation seem to have been a bit premature?
Oh, absolutely. I was completely wrong. They say a week is a long time in politics. Well, the last week has been a very long time here in Georgia. I mean, day after day, the situation on the ground becomes more and more tense. Huge numbers of people's out on the streets, sort of hundreds of thousands of people every night protesting because the government here said basically that they were going to suspend their bid to join the EU. And for Georgians, EU membership has been something of a national mission. You know, for the last 3 decades of independence, Georgians have basically been united in wanting to do this. And when the election happened in October, there were accusations the government had basically rigged the vote in its favour. But still, even the government at that time claimed to still want EU membership. And when the government basically completely, withdrew that, then people got very, very angry and came out into the streets. So when I wrote that, it looked like the protests had been over. But the government made an unforced error and is actually continuing to make errors because it is cracking down with huge brutality on these protesters. I just looked out my window yesterday and saw, people being beaten up in the streets by riot police. There are reports of people being dragged out of cars. The government comeback on this has actually made the protests bigger rather than smaller.
So do you believe that whole talk, all that talk about eventually joining the EU was just a pretense to getting back into power?
No, I think the government was being disingenuous. I think during the campaign, I think everyone can see that. To pretend that it still favoured EU membership when in fact it was doing everything to stop that happening. But to many people in Georgia, they saw the big ruling party posters with big EU flags emblazoned on them and thought that whatever the tensions that existed between the Georgian government and the EU, that these would somehow be sorted out. Well, I think now we are beyond the realm of reasonable doubt now that this battle being fought on the streets of Tbilisi between protesters and police is a battle for the future of the country and a battle to pull Georgia away from its imperial overlord, Russia, once and for all.
And so how much of a miscalculation was that by the Georgian government, the Georgian Dream government, to go down this path in the last couple of days? As you said in your piece, it appeared that the protesters were dwindling and they would kind of continue with their next term in government. But now is that under threat?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the more that the government cracks down on protests, the more it seems to be doing things that anger people, the less strong their hold on power seems to be. I mean, as I wrote in the article last week, it looked like that they'd managed to win, that they'd managed to secure another 4 years in power. But all these unforced errors have put them in a very much weaker position than they were. Now, the question remains is what happens next. Do the protests continue? Does the crackdown continue to be as harsh as it is now? Do we get to that critical mass where people start resigning from the government? I mean, we've already seen several foreign ambassadors, so Georgian ambassadors in other countries, resigning from their posts, including the Georgian ambassador to the US. We're seeing, lots of officials from different ministries, from different civil services resign. And if that gets to a critical mass, maybe it becomes impossible to govern the country. And then, the more this violence goes on, the more it feels like, something close to being a revolution than being just a protest wave.
So how key a figure will the president be over the coming days?
So the president has had a very key role in the sense that she is on the opposition side effectively. She was elected as a pro-government president 4 years, a few years ago, and now she's very angry about the fact that the government has U-turned on EU membership and basically is supporting the protesters. She believes that the elections that took place in October were rigged and has said that. And does not recognise the results. And she has said basically that she will remain president, although her term ends in a few weeks, until a legitimate president can be elected. And at the moment, the government has put forward its candidate for president to succeed her, who really angered people because he is seen as being a very pro-Russian figure. So we're setting up here for a prolonged and very complicated political battle here. And if the president refused to leave office, then we could have really serious repercussions here for the country.
Yeah, and so, as you say, the key indication as to where this ends up will be if government ministers start peeling away.
Well, government ministers or, people in the police, for example. The police have obviously so far been supporting the government, but the footage of brutality, people being kicked while they're down, 10, 20 police people trying to drag away one or two demonstrators and being, incredibly violent towards them, it's possible. I think maybe some people in the opposition might hope that those police officers who don't agree with this kind of brutal tactics, who don't agree with the violence that's being dealt out to people here, might decide to say, we're not going to do this anymore. This is not what we signed up for.
Yeah. OK, Alex Scrivener, really interesting talking to you. Thanks for that from Tbilisi in Georgia.